All right, ready to jump into some ancient Indian history. This one's for anyone who's ever cracked open a UPSC exam prep book and felt a little intimidated
Oh, yeah.
by that section on Mahajanapadas.
Definitely a mouthful.
But believe me, it's way more exciting than it sounds.
Absolutely.
The Game of Thrones, but with, chariots and elephants.
I like where this is going.
Seriously. We're talking about a time when India was transforming, like right around the 6th century BCE. Same time Buddhism was emerging, actually.
It's a pivotal era. We see the shift from smaller, scattered tribes to these larger, more organized kingdoms. They set the stage for all those powerful empires that come later.
Exactly. And geographically, we're talking about a massive area. Picture the Indo-Gangetic Plains, stretching all the way from modern-day Afghanistan to Bihar and down to the Godavari River. That's where these 16 Mahajanapadas, or great kingdoms, were flourishing.
16 unique power players, each with its own story.
Okay. So we've got these 16 kingdoms, but what made them so different from the smaller tribal groups that came before?
Well, for one thing, their style of governing. Some were straight-up monarchies, what we call rajas, with a single king calling the shots.
Makes sense, right? Kings and kingdoms, that's the classic image.
Right, but then you have others that were republics, known as ganas or sanghas. Power was shared among a group of elite families.
Whoa, republics in ancient India. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, it challenges some assumptions, doesn't it?
It definitely does. So we've got kings, we've got councils.
Yeah.
But what was daily life actually like in these Mahajanapadas? Did they have organized systems in place, like for running things?
Oh, absolutely. They were becoming more sophisticated in their administration all the time. Take the role of a village leader, for example, called a gamini. This wasn't just some honorary title. They had real responsibilities.
I'm guessing it wasn't just one size fits all either.
Exactly. A gamini could be an elephant trainer one day, a stage manager the next.
Wow. Talk about wearing many hats. That really shows how diverse their skill sets were.
Definitely. And as societies grew, you needed that specialization.
Right. You can't run a kingdom if everyone's doing the same thing.
Exactly.
And of course, kingdoms need resources, which brings us to taxes.
The inevitable taxes. But think about it. The fact that they had taxation systems tells us these Mahajanapadas were getting organized.
They were becoming more efficient at managing their finances.
Right. Essential if you're going to fund those big infrastructure projects.
And of course, let's not forget the military.
Ah, yes, the military. Always a big part of the picture.
So paint me a picture. What did these armies look like? Were we talking massive forces?
We're talking epic Mahabharata-level armies. Not just random groups of warriors either, but organized forces with infantry, cavalry, chariots.
Sounds impressive.
Oh, and elephants?
Wait, elephants on the battlefield.
Oh, yeah.
Now that's next level.
It was quite a spectacle.
I bet. I'm also guessing iron technology played a big role.
Oh, absolutely. Iron weapons and armor gave armies a huge advantage. And the strategies, remember those military formations described in the Mahabharata?
Like the Chakravyuha, right? That one's super intricate.
Exactly. Strategy was just as important as brute force.
It's amazing how all this connects. It's not just about memorizing names and dates for an exam. It's about understanding how these different pieces fit together.
It is like a puzzle.
Right. The shift from smaller groups to these larger kingdoms, the emergence of all these specialized roles, the growth of these powerful militaries.
Each piece adds to our understanding of ancient India.
And let's not forget about the people themselves. Society was changing too, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Society was becoming more stratified, with clear divisions between nobles, traders, farmers, and laborers. And the caste system, although not fully formed, was starting to emerge.
So a more complex social hierarchy was developing.
Yes. And another important aspect to remember, one we might find troubling today, was the prevalence of slavery.
Right. It's important to acknowledge the complexities of history. We can't just romanticize the past and ignore the difficult parts.
Absolutely. Every era has its shadows.
True. But let's not dwell on the negative. This is also a time of booming trade and commerce, right?
That's right. They had well-established trade routes. And get this, they even used coins.
Coins? Seriously? That seems pretty advanced for ancient times.
It was. Some were made of silver or copper and stamped with unique symbols.
Like ancient logos.
Exactly. It shows a sophisticated system of exchange and how powerful these kingdoms were becoming.
Okay, so we've got complex systems of administration, a more stratified society, powerful militaries, and a thriving economy. But what about religion? This was also a time of great religious and spiritual change, wasn't it?
You're right. We see Buddhism and Jainism emerging alongside Hinduism. It suggests a period of intense intellectual and spiritual ferment.
It's amazing to imagine the debates and discussions that must have happened. These new religions really challenged the existing norms and shaped the course of Indian history. But were all these Mahajanapadas equally influential? Or did some rise to greater prominence than others?
Well, one in particular stands out. Magadha.
Magadha. That name rings a bell. Tell me more.
Magadha had it all, really. Strategically located right in the fertile Gangetic Plain.
Prime real estate.
You got it. And natural boundaries like rivers and hills, that give them a major defensive edge.
So not just about the fertile land, but also about protection.
Exactly. And those rivers, they weren't just barriers, they were bustling trade routes, too.
Smart.
Oh, and I can't forget to mention iron ore mines.
Okay, iron. Now we're talking. That must have been a game changer for their military.
Huge advantage. They could produce top-notch weapons and armor.
I bet that made their neighbors a little nervous.
Probably.
But location and resources are only part of the story, right? Didn't Magadha also have some pretty ambitious rulers?
Absolutely. A series of sharp, strategic kings who really expanded their territory.
We're talking big personalities here.
Oh, yeah. Think Bimbisara, Ajatashatru, and later Mahapadmananda. These guys were powerhouses.
They knew how to play the game of power, huh?
For sure. Alliances, strategy, even a bit of cunning when needed.
It's like a real-life political thriller.
Right out of history.
So they were ambitious, but it wasn't just about brute force, right?
Nope. They were smart about building up their cities and infrastructure, too.
Makes sense. You can't rule a kingdom if it's falling apart.
Exactly. Their first capital was Rajagriha, nestled right between 5 hills. Talk about a natural fortress.
Wow, what a strategic location.
Right. Later, they moved their capital to Pataliputra, a real hub for trade and administration.
Oh, where was that located?
Right at the confluence of 3 rivers.
Now that's thinking ahead.
It was a powerful symbol.
So we've got Magadha rising to the top. But what about the other Mahajanapadas? How did they all interact? Just constant conflict.
Well, there was certainly competition. But don't forget about trade. Those trade routes we mentioned earlier, like Uttarapatha and Dakshinapatha.
Right, the arteries of ancient India?
Exactly. They weren't just paths, they were lifelines for commerce and cultural exchange.
So spices, textiles, maybe some precious metals moving along those routes.
All of that, plus animals, precious stones, you name it. It was a lively network.
Wow, it's amazing to think how connected they were, even back then.
Oh, and don't forget about maritime trade. They had ports like Tamarlipta, modern-day Tamluk, connecting them to the wider world.
So they were trading with places beyond India, too.
Oh, yeah, places like Southeast Asia.
Amazing. Okay, so we've got trade, we've got competition, but what about their culture? What can we learn from their art and architecture?
Their art and architecture, that's where things get really interesting.
Normandy.
Just picture those majestic stupas, like the Great Stupa at Sanchi. They weren't just piles of brick and stone, they were expressions of faith.
Incredible structures. And what about temples and palaces? Did those start appearing during this period?
Definitely. You see the early stages of intricate temple architecture with all those detailed carvings and sculptures.
Wow, so their art wasn't just for decoration. It was tied to their beliefs in their daily lives.
Absolutely. And for anyone studying for the UPSC exam, this is crucial stuff.
Right. It's not just about knowing the names and dates. It's about understanding the bigger picture.
Exactly.
So what are some key takeaways our UPSC warriors should focus on?
Well, first off, master those basics. The 16 Mahajanapadas, their locations, their unique features, political systems, all of that.
The foundation, basically.
Right. But then go deeper. Why did Magadha rise to power? How did republics impact the political scene? How did these kingdoms influence art, architecture, and religious thought?
It's about connecting the dots and seeing how the Mahajanapadas set the stage for what came next.
Exactly. They were more than just a stepping stone. They were a vibrant, influential period.
It's like we're looking back in time and seeing the roots of Indian culture, you know?
It really is. And for anyone gearing up for those UPSC exams,
Yeah.
this is prime essay material. Think about the impact of Buddhism and Jainism, the rise and fall of kingdoms, trade, economics, the role of strong leaders.
So much to unpack.
It's all right there.
But it's not just about spitting back facts and figures, right? It's about understanding the context.
Absolutely. You got to see the connection.
Like how these ancient kingdoms influence the India we see today.
Exactly. Think about the administrative systems. You can see how they evolved over time from those early Mahajanapadas.
Right, and the same with art, architecture, religious thought, even trade routes.
It's all connected.
It's fascinating to see how these seeds planted so long ago grew into what we have now. So, any advice for our UPSC folks who are really trying to nail this topic?
Go beyond memorization. Dive deep into those primary sources. Look at the archaeological
Get
evidence.
your hands dirty.
Exactly. Engage with different interpretations. The UPSC isn't just about knowing stuff, it's about critical thinking.
Showing you can connect the dots.
Oh, exactly.
So take all those names, dates, events, and transform them into a deeper understanding of ancient India.
Think about the geography. Why did certain kingdoms flourish where they did?
The economics of trade, the motivations behind conquests.
The social and religious changes that swept through everything.
It's like taking a textbook and turning it into a story.
A story full of ambition, conflict, innovation, cultural exchange.
Maybe even inspire some folks to keep exploring long after the exam is over.
I hope so. There's always more to discover.
Well, whether you're a UPSC superstar or just curious about history, we hope this deep dive into the Mahajanapadas has given you a new perspective.
Remember, the past isn't just dates and facts. It's about human experience, ambition, struggle, creativity.
So much to learn from.
It helps us understand ourselves and the world we live in today.
Well said. So keep exploring those history books. Keep asking those questions. Who knows what you'll discover about ancient India?
Happy exploring, everyone.
This has been The Deep Dive, your personalized journey through history. Thanks for joining us.